This week I'm doing one huge Photoshop manipulation with all of my favorite Halloween characters and horror villains in a graveyard in Photoshop. So I decided I wanted to do kind of a mashup with every one of my favorite characters, and as I started searching what those characters were, I just kept coming up with more and more and more. So since this is a mashup, we're calling it the Monster Mash. And because it's a Monster Mash, it's also a graveyard smash. I've got about 50 characters for this. Maybe actually more, because the Addams family I'm counting as one character, and I think there are 6 or 7 of them there. So I'm just going to take all of them and arrange them around. You'll see I split them apart by if it's a full body picture, a half body picture, or a portrait. This way I just kind of know where my assets are and how many I have of which. Then once I get those arranged in a way I like, I'll continue playing with it. Mostly what I'm going to do for composition is just layer and layer and layer and try to make sure everybody looks an appropriate size and height for what I know about them. So this process will just be me doing that over and over again. So a few things from my original composition, just me laying this out, I noticed. The first was I got lost so fast with this many layers, so I had to take the time to go back through and label everything out as to what it was. That way I could just find what I needed, because in the future I'm going to need to do a lot more adjustments on these, so knowing what is going to be really important. Secondly, I didn't really like the sandworm I had, so I replaced that with a new image I found. I've got everything roughly arranged where I want it now. I think maybe the best thing to do is to start working on the background really fast. So I'm going to go ahead and do some of that. I took all of my characters and grouped them in a single group so that I don't have to deal with all of these layers. Then I went and pulled some stock images off of Envato Elements. And so I have some trees. I have some lightning. Background that I really like, the sky on. And the moon, because I feel like every Halloween image needs to have a moon in it. So I'm just going to kind of throw this together real fast, see what I think, see what I can come up with. With the addition of the trees and the moon, I decided it was time to go in and start getting some highlights and reflected lights onto those trees that I had brought in. I go through and do that to pretty much every tree, in both the orange from the glow of the moon and the green from the horizon. I end up changing all of this later just because I hate myself. I decided that I wasn't really happy with the color of the moon. It just kind of stuck out to me, and I wanted a brighter, more otherworldly sky out for this night, so I just went through and had to redo all of this again. It wasn't as bad. I just shifted the color of the layer, but basically all of this orange work got changed pretty quickly after. I think what I'm going to do is go in and put some vignetting around, but I want that to be broken up. So I'm using this same fog brush. We'll get it darkened around the edges. I think I like that, and the only thing left now is to start bringing in characters and foreground elements. So we'll put all of our characters on, and I'm going to scale those to the size they should be. I think this looks good, so now really just make a few more adjustments and start to get some other layers in here. And I'll come back to you when that's getting to the place I want it to be. Now that I've got all my foreground elements in, it's going to be time to go through and start color correcting all of the characters, the foreground elements, the graves, everything. I want to shift everything toward a blue, get it all kind of feeling like it's a part of the same world. So I'm going to do that, and then I'm going to copy that layer style, or the hue and saturation layer, and I'll just duplicate it to every other layer. And I want to duplicate it instead of just putting one layer, so that I can have a individual adjustment on each of the layers. Not all of them have the same kind of color temperature. So I'm going to work on getting those layers and color adjustments done, and then I'll come back when it's time for some shadows and highlights. So not only did I have a hue and saturation layer on every object and element in the composition, I also ended up putting a levels adjustment layer on pretty much every element, and a hue and saturation just to drop down the saturation of some of the characters. And those three layers went on almost every other layer I had, which was I think 50 or 60. So at this point, I think I'm up to 300 or 400 layers in this composition. And if I hadn't labeled everything really well, it would have been so hard to try to go through and find everything at this point. The next thing I want to do is kind of bring in some fog. I want a lot of fog in this graveyard. It's going to help me to separate each of the elements of my character standing there. So I think my next thing is just going to be to bring in a bunch of fog. And you can see I'll just bring that in. I'll use it to add depth to the character standing there. I want to go through and start adding some highlights or reflected light to each of my characters. I'll do that with an adjustment layer on top of groups of things. That way I don't have to do one for every individual thing. I'll just make a group and then do an adjustment layer on the group. And then I can go in and start laying in the reflected light from the lightning and the reflected light from the moon in the background. So you'll see me do that. I'll speed up this process here. My last step here is going to be to do my camera raw filter, get some adjustments done on that, and then the piece should be complete. Here it is, the Monster Mash, the finished piece. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please leave a like on it, and if you enjoy the content I'm making, please subscribe to the channel. It helps out tremendously. If you have any suggestions for future videos, leave a comment below. Until next time, have a good day.